My name is Jennifer, and I'm married to Robert. Robert has a younger brother named James, who is 3 years younger than him. The woman James brought home as his future wife turned out to be quite a surprise. "Hey, I'm getting married," James announced, looking genuinely happy as he introduced us to his fiancée. "Hi, I'm Elizabeth. Nice to meet you." Elizabeth was a flashy dresser, decked out in designer brands. Her bold makeup and nails made her a little intimidating at first glance. But after talking to her, we found her to be outgoing and charming. We were genuinely happy for James and his upcoming marriage. Robert's parents had both passed away, his mom when he was in 7th grade and his dad 2 years ago. So neither Robert nor James had parents anymore. "I bet Mom and Dad are celebrating your news up in heaven," Robert said. "Look, I've been depending on you for so long, Robert. I don't expect that to change once we're married," James added. "Don't say that, or I'll be taking care of you forever," Robert replied, both of them laughing joyfully. They had always been close brothers who discussed anything and everything. "So where are you guys planning to live after getting married?" I asked, still absorbing the sudden engagement news. "We're thinking of building our own place. The thing is, I travel a lot for work, so we're still undecided on where to build," James answered. Because of his frequent work travel, he had a tough time deciding where to live. "We don't have reliable parents to lean on. If we live near each other, we can help one another if something happens," I agreed. My parents live far away, and Elizabeth seemed to have no parents around either. "That sounds like a good plan." "Yeah, but properties around here are expensive. We're not rich like Robert, so it's a tough call," James said. The idea to live nearby was a casual suggestion, but they took it seriously and moved into a house relatively close to us. After they settled in, we frequently had barbecues and drank together. It was a good time. Months later, they were blessed with a baby on the way, but tragedy struck on his usual trip back from work. James fell asleep at the wheel and passed away. Robert was consumed by grief over the sudden loss of his beloved brother. Elizabeth, on the other hand, didn't seem that devastated. Normally, you'd be distraught, especially with a baby coming, but not her. She did cry, but it looked fake, making me wonder. Feeling uneasy, I reached out to her. "If you need anything after the baby comes, you can always rely on us. We'll support you in any way we can." "Thank you," she said. That was the last we saw of Elizabeth. Months later, we received a birth announcement from her and went to visit. But she said she was too busy to invite us in, so we left the gift at the door and went back home. It was crazy that we couldn't even see the baby when we came to visit. Our distrust toward Elizabeth only grew after that. It felt like she was avoiding us. Anytime we reached out, she claimed she was too busy to meet. Before we knew it, a year had passed since James' death. Then, out of the blue, Elizabeth showed up at our house. "It's been a while, Jennifer," she said. "Long time no see. How have you been?" "What brings you here all of a sudden?" I asked. "I came because I need some advice. Is Emily not with you?" "Emily's at preschool. Being alone at home with her all the time was driving me crazy, so I enrolled her right after she was born." "Oh, I see. Are you working then?" "Working? No way." "Okay, good on you for managing preschool then. I got her in because I was diagnosed with depression after my husband's death. I got a doctor's note and everything." "Wow, didn't know that was an option. Anyway, what's the advice you need?" Elizabeth's next statement left me shocked. "Would you mind paying our property taxes?" "What? Property taxes? Where is this coming from?" "We don't have money to pay your property taxes. Why would you think we would? You said we could ask you for anything, didn't you?" "Well, yes, but plus, you guys were the ones who insisted we live on that land." "We never insisted. Regardless, property taxes for that land are higher than in other places, and it's really causing us problems. Why don't you just work a bit and pay it yourself?" "I can't work. I've even got Emily in preschool based on the excuse that I can't work due to mental illness. That's not our problem. Please, if we can't pay the property tax, we won't be able to live in that house." "Look, I don't know all the details, so I'll discuss it with Robert when he gets home." "Please do," she said. After showing up out of the blue and making such an unexpected request, Elizabeth left. When Robert got home, I told him about Elizabeth's sudden visit and her asking us to pay the property taxes. Of course, Robert was surprised, but he was also angered by her audacity. A few weeks later, we invited Elizabeth over to our house to discuss something important. We timed it so that her daughter, Emily, was at preschool, allowing the three of us to talk. Elizabeth arrived in a good mood, probably thinking we were going to help her with the property taxes. "Robert, it's been a while," Elizabeth greeted him. "You seem well. I heard from Jennifer, but let's hear it from you. What did you want to talk about?" Robert asked. "Well, I hate to be a bother, but I came to ask for help with the property taxes," she admitted. "Why can't you pay them yourself? Is there a reason?" "I'm still dealing with emotional stress and can't work. With a young child, I just don't have the money for the taxes." "So you can't handle unexpected expenses?" "Exactly. The property taxes are way too high. After all, it was you guys who decided we should buy that house on that land, so it's your responsibility to help us out," Elizabeth said, frustration evident in her voice. "Why don't you have the money in the first place?" Robert asked. "I'm a single mom. It's tough. Survivor's benefits alone don't cut it. I'm barely making ends meet and can't handle sudden expenses like taxes." "You're lying about not having money," Robert retorted. "I'm not. I lost a breadwinning husband. Are you out of touch with reality?" You think I don't know anything?" Robert said, something rather cryptic. Hearing those words, Elizabeth's expression changed slightly. "Whoa, you're scaring me, Robert. You're getting more than just survivor benefits, aren't you?" "What are you talking about? That's all I get," she defended herself. "It's pointless to lie. I know everything. You're getting money from life insurance, too." Elizabeth remained silent. "My brother had life insurance, you know. He was insured for about $1,000 a month until he was 60. So what? As his wife, it's my right to receive that money. You have no right to question me. But you do get a good amount of money every month with survivor's benefits and the insurance money, don't you? It's still not enough for everyday living. We have a mortgage. You've paid off the mortgage, haven't you? Don't you also get various other forms of assistance? How do you know all this?" "My brother consulted with me about everything, especially financial matters. So I know it all." "I see, but like I said before, I'm his wife and Emily is his daughter. How we use that money is none of your business." "Fair point, but since money is coming in, you should manage it properly and pay your own taxes. Robert, you work for a big corporation, and you're rich. Why can't you just help us out a little? You're being too stingy." Elizabeth still seemed unconvinced. Listening to this conversation, I finally understood why Elizabeth, even after losing her husband, continued to live lavishly without working. I couldn't complain. That money was something her late husband left for her. But Robert wasn't done talking. That's when I came to know an unbelievable fact. "So earlier, you said the kid is James's. Is that true?" Robert asked. "What? What are you talking about? Of course it is," Elizabeth snapped. "Well, that's good because if it's not, we have a big problem." "Isn't that quite rude? I just lost my husband. Don't start accusing me of things." I, who had been silently listening, quickly interjected. "That's crossing the line, man." But Robert continued, "You see, my brother consulted me when he found out about their pregnancy." "What about?" Elizabeth asked, her tone defiant. "He said that judging by the due date, there's no way the child could be his." "What do you mean?" "He was always on an extended business trip and hadn't been home during that time. He was worried that the child might not be his." "That's absurd." "I thought so too initially. James said there was no evidence of an affair. Then he passed away before we could gather any. So it was a misunderstanding, right? After James was gone, I couldn't shake off the thought, so I investigated." "Investigated what?" "Whether you had been unfaithful, Elizabeth." My jaw dropped in shock from this new information. Robert continued speaking to Elizabeth. "I was planning to take my time gathering evidence, but since you came to our home, I hurried my investigation." "And what did you find?" "You're living with another man now, aren't you?" "So what if I am? He's someone I started seeing after my husband passed." "I see. I was wondering if the man you're living with is the child's father, but it turns out he's not. Emily's father is my brother." "Do you have any proof?" "Sorry to say, I approached Emily and the man at the park and got a single hair strand from their clothing." "That's creepy. I do feel a bit guilty, but it's for my brother," Robert said. "And what did you do with it?" James is no longer with us, so I submitted the hair along with mine for a DNA test. According to Robert, even if it's not from the father, a close relative can provide enough genetic information for a paternity test, I explained. Robert continued, the test showed that Emily is not James's child, Elizabeth. Elizabeth looked down, unable to speak. Then she finally spoke, almost in a whisper. So what does that mean? It's heartbreaking for James. Speaking ill of the dead accomplishes nothing, Robert replied. Maybe, but since my brother can't find justice, I plan to file a lawsuit against you and your lover for damages. What? What are you talking about? We're getting married soon. Oh, really? Well, that makes things easier. What does? Since the house is already paid off, you should just sell it. Then you can use that money to pay for both your compensations. Why should I? If you can afford the compensation, you're welcome to stay, but your fiancé doesn't work, right? How do you know that? You can get by without working now, but that changes when you're married. It's none of your business. The conversation was far from over, and an angry Elizabeth tried to leave. Robert spoke up. I'll handle the property taxes for you. I'll also start the process for selling the house. Angry, Elizabeth stormed off. She eventually sold the house just as Robert suggested. The house sold quickly due to its desirable location and being relatively new. Elizabeth paid the compensation with the money from the sale. Apparently, Elizabeth and her man got married, but because of that, she would no longer receive the survivor's benefits she had been getting due to her husband's passing. Ignorant Elizabeth had no clue about this. She bought a cheap used house with the money from the sale. No longer a single mom, her financial aid dried up as did the survivor's benefits. Both Elizabeth and her new husband had to start working. Elizabeth had been a spender on fashion and beauty, but her marriage marked the start of a tougher life. Her husband couldn't keep a job, and the marriage soon fell apart. Elizabeth was back to being a single mom, but now with no financial aid coming in. She has to work desperately to make ends meet. For us, the storm has passed, and our peaceful days have returned. We were even blessed with a child we had longed for. I can't wait to meet the child that I will have with my beloved Robert. We will give our child the middle name of my late brother-in-law, ensuring that his memory will always be with us.